Greetings, I'm Marios and I'd like to welcome you to a very special occasion because now it is time to unveil the secrets of Irkala Kar. So far you may have listened to the story that is contained in the concept of our new album, Kingdom of Horrors, and you have followed the tale of Athanor as he struggles for solace and inner peace by traveling to the underworld, Irkala Kar, and fighting the monstrosities there. You may have also followed the rest of the concept, taken a taste of the upper world of Nemorentia in our album The Realm of Tragedy, and as well as learned the whole story behind it in the novella accompanying the release, Bowels of Madness. Now it is time to take a look into our new tabletop RPG game, which is called Secrets of Irkala Kar. So, let's take a look into what this game contains. Let's open the Secrets of Irkala Kar. First off, you have a booklet with the rules, very important. When you have an RPG game, you need rules. For those of you already familiar with the whole role-playing game literature and rules, this will not come as a surprise. However, for the rest of you, this is very important to follow. Then we have 6 dice right here. They are uniquely crafted for the purposes and needs of this game. We'll follow those later on. Then there is the world map, which unfolds actually, but you'll get a better taste of this later on. And at this point, it is very important to tell you that this is the first time we're doing something like that. It's actually an experiment, if you will, an experiment in your personal enjoyment and immersion into the world we have created. Therefore, we consider you beta testers and we're very eager to hear your feedback and your comments about this, and if you have any ideas or suggestions on how we can improve the overall gaming experience, feel free to contact us. So, in general, we follow the basic RPG form, let's say, norm, and each player character, each one participating in the game, gets to choose a character. Here you have character sheets. Each character has a soul portrait, as we call it. It's actually not a physical representation of the character, but the representation of the inner self. And you have 3 distinct classes. You have the Zaidan, the warrior of Nemorentia. You have the assassins, parts of the Furba Brotherhood, the assassins of Nemorentia, and you have the Magus, part of the Magian order that rules Nemorentia. So each player character gets to choose one character class to play, or a lot of players can choose the same class, whatever. Then, in the box, you have these handouts. You have actually 4 handouts. Well, let's talk about these for a moment. This is a small handout. It's part of the game's campaign. We'll talk about the campaign in a little while. And you have handouts containing the characters' backstories. Now, it's very important to know the backstory of your character as a player, because in Nemorentia there are no good guys. There are only varying shades of evil. So each character has a personal agenda. He has a personal purpose in the game, which might come in conflict with those of the other players. Therefore, each player knows his story or her story by himself and chooses whether he will cooperate or he will attack the other players. Now, we have created also these little tokens or markers. Let's see, this is for the assassin, this is for the magus, and this is for the Zaidan or warrior class. Of course, feel free to use miniatures, just like in traditional role-playing game, but we have created those as a part of the system that fits into our grid. But we'll talk about the grid also later on. Then, of course, because in this game, if you follow the campaign that is included in the rulebook, you will venture into the underworld and face the monstrosities there, just like Athanor did in our album. So, all these monsters, they do have a character sheet of their own. You see here, each monster has its portrait, a description, and of course its abilities. There are 7 monsters in total, so you see 7 monster character sheets. These are very important, and also Except for the abilities, each monster has a very unique and special item that it drops as a trophy that you attain when you defeat it. And of course, the fun of the game is that characters may fight each other and quarrel over who gets what. Of course, monsters, these 7 unique monsters have their own markers or let's say tokens. So according to the portrait, you have its portrait here, and of course all the artwork is unique and created for this album. Finally, in the box you have what we call a battle grid, which is very important for all close encounters in the game. For instance, if you enter into a combat sequence, you use the grid. As for, to give you an example, you are fighting Nibrina, Mistress of Terror, a spider-like creature. Here you have it on the battle grid, and you have the players placed here, for instance, and you move around in such a fashion so as to have an idea of where the characters are and have a more vivid and immersive experience. Now, finally, let's not forget this, in the box you have these 15 of these, actually. They are small tokens or markers with a skull, which represent random general creatures. Of course, all creatures and monsters that you encounter in the underworld have their own description in the rulebook that will be given to the players, but however, for purposes of practicality, all minor creatures are symbolized with a token with a skull. Now, let's talk a little bit about the game. In the game, you actually all characters, all players, which can be from 1 person up to 6 people. It depends however big your group is. But in general, what you get to play is a role-playing game about a group of adventurers. Some belonging to the Magus class, others belong to the Zaydan class, and others belonging to the Assassin class, and they all undertake a mission which will inevitably and purposefully lead them into the underworld. Now, I won't give out much of the secrets there, but there is a unique system and actually unique dice that we have created for you, and these help in many of the occasions and the systems in the game. For instance, you have this 14-sided die, which is a special ability dice. So each character class has its own special abilities and its own unique traits that are decided at hazard with these dice. So each time you play the game, there is an element of suspense and of surprise at what you get. You do not always get what you want in Irkala Kar, and we are really focused on bringing that into let's say an anxiety or a sense of suspense that will permeate the players. Now, of course, the Magus has 2 special dice created especially for him. Now, all classes do have special abilities, both the Zaydan, the warrior class, the Magus and the assassin. This is common for everyone. Now, the Magus himself has 2 special dice just for himself. This one, this pyramid-shaped dice, determines whether casting a spell will be successful or not, because in Nemorentia, magic is like a force of nature. It's something unpredictable and very difficult to master, therefore when you decide to cast a spell, you never know if it will work. So by rolling these dice, you determine if it is a successful spell or not. And of course, we always decide by the symbol represented on the bottom side of the pyramid, the way it rolls. Then of course, to determine which spell the Magus gets to cast, if he has a successful roll, he rolls this other dice and he finds the symbol relevant to the spell and therefore decides which spell to cast. And again, there are in the rulebook there are contained very elaborate and detailed tables where there is a juxtaposition of symbols and spells, and therefore it's very easy to do that. Then you have a very generic, let's say all-purpose 6-sided die that determines a lot of rolls, movement and checks and all that. You have a heavy damage dice, a 10-sided dice that determines the damage done by heavy weapons, usually those wielded by the Zaydan, by the warrior, who gets to wield more grievously wounding weapons, and of course the heavy damaging spells of the Magus. And finally, a very important dice for the game, a very unique and important dice which I happen to like really much. This is the sanity roll dice. You see, when you enter in Irkala Kar, the very core of one's sanity is shaken, and it is not always that one manages to stay in the underworld and retain his sanity. Therefore, according to the rules, every few turns every player has to roll for his sanity, and he either maintains it or he loses a sanity point. Now, of course, there is also a very bad case where you have a mental breakdown, a mental meltdown, which is something, well, pretty much that happens a lot of the time in Irkala Kar. But if a player loses his sanity, then he becomes raving mad, and he is at the mercy of the game master, the storyteller, as we call him, to do as the storyteller pleases. So the player actually loses control of his own character. Pretty much that's what is contained in this box, and that's the general idea of the game. It's actually pretty straightforward for an RPG, all things considered, for those of you that know this sort of mechanic. For the rest of you, I'm pretty sure it's going to be an amazing experience that will give you many hours of fun and enjoyment. And also, this is the reason we have created a symphonic album, especially to give a musical backdrop for all these adventures, your adventures into the underworld. So thank you very much, enjoy, and always remember that the underworld awaits.